Hi, and welcome to Real Talk, The Road to Tomorrow. I'm Rutvika.
And I'm Tamoghna. Today we are super excited to be talking to Bree, a freshman at Stanford University, who's majoring in bioengineering and minoring in earth systems. We were really inspired by how she's combining the sciences with a passion for the environment, and we can't wait to hear more about her experiences so far.
Bree, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
What drew you to major in bioengineering and minor in earth systems, and how did those interests develop in high school?
So actually coming into Stanford, I was planning on majoring in physics because I really wanted to work on renewable energy and uh stuff like that. But I ended up Stanford has theme houses and stuff, so I'm in the energy house. And I just, like through all my activities and like the classes I took, I realized that this isn't really the path for me. So I ended up moving to chemical engineering because I thought because it's so broad that you could do anything in chemical engineering. And I went through one class and I was like, yeah, this isn't it. And then I was like, hey, like, I've always had like a really big interest in biology. Like
Mhm.
in my high school classes, like I loved bio. I loved when we talked about like plants and chemistry and stuff like that. And I was like, what am I doing in chemie? I should be in bio-y. I get to There's a bunch of labs on campus that do work on like genetically engineering plants and stuff. And there's a lot of work going around of using BioE to deal with issues relating to sustainability, which I think is really interesting. There's a lab in the Doris School here that's working on bacteria that can eat plastic, and that's very interesting. And then there's another lab in the chemical engineering department that's doing research on metabolic mapping or pathway mapping for plants to see how they can study them to make them more efficient, I guess, so that they can produce more yield and require less like fossil fuels with the farming industry.
So, was there like a moment you knew science was your thing?
Um, so my mom is a big science nerd, and I've grown up with it my whole life. I can't really remember a time where I wasn't like that wasn't my thing. Like in high school, I was like the science girl. Like people came to me for science stuff. That was my thing. So I don't know if there's an exact moment where I knew. It's more of like it's just I just spawned here and science was something that I knew I loved.
Mhm.
How did you see bioengineering and environmental science coming together in your future goals?
So I'm really new to the field, so I'm not entirely sure because I'm still a freshman and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. Because believe it or not, you don't have to have it all figured out when you just get out of high school. The amount of times I switched my major is actually insane. But no, I think that the research that they're doing, like I love plants. Like plants are so cool and awesome. But I would love to do like some of the plant research that they're doing here. So I would love to try and get into a lab next year and
Mhm.
see if that would be my thing.
Mhm. What's something you wish more people understood about chemistry or STEM majors in general?
I think, and I came into this as like, you have to be naturally good at it to do it, which is
Mhm.
just entirely not true. I think that like STEM is a lot of work, right?
Mhm.
I I just had a midterm last night. I had a midterm last week and it put me through the ringer, I'm not gonna lie. And just going through high school, I was like, oh, like I'm naturally good at this. Like everything just like comes right to me. And then I got to Stanford and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's not coming to me. Like I'm not just getting it the first time I read it. And something that it took me a while to realize is like it doesn't have to come to you the first time that you read it. You don't have to get it as quickly as everyone else. You just have to want it and you have to put the work into it to get it. And it's totally possible.
Mhm.
What has surprised you most about college life at Stanford so far?
I thought that me coming to Stanford would make me more uptight. I'm not gonna lie, I was very uptight in high school. But this is my place. I feel so relaxed here. I found my people, I found my clubs. Like this is I belong here. Um, in the area. I was not expecting that.
What would you say your favorite place to study at Stanford is?
I like to bounce around where I study because if I study in the same spot too many times, then I get bored of it or I just start to not like it.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of outdoor study spaces because I'm in the Bay, and the Bay is like the same temperature almost all year round. So you can study outside all year round. So I'd honestly just like be riding my bike around campus. I'm like, oh, that looks like a good spot to pull over. And I'll just pull over and study somewhere totally random.
What is one environmental issue you're really passionate about, and how do you hope to work it in it or on it someday?
I am passionate about a lot of environmental issues. I think the whole like us being hyper dependent on fossil fuels is probably the one that I'm most knowledgeable about and the one that I'm most like angry about, not gonna lie. But I'm still shifting to see how my career could directly tackle that. With the chemical engineering degree, it would have been a lot easier with biofuels and stuff, which isn't totally impossible with bioengineering. I just think that my career's taken a different path right now, still directed at sustainability, but there's a lot of other things that you can get involved in that doesn't have to be directly related to your major. Like, voting's huge. Um, Getting involved in like political action and stuff like that is also really important.
Yeah, of course. What would be your dream research or internship opportunity, like lab-based, field work, or both?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think right now, if I got a research position in one of the Stanford plant labs, I'd lose my mind. It would be incredible.
Hmm.
Do you see yourself going into research, policy, industry, or something else entirely?
So contrary to most of the people at Stanford, I do not want to make my own startup. I don't think that's for me, but um, I'm really, really leaning towards research right now because I love being in a wet lab and I
Mhm.
love R&D work. It's so fun. But I could also see myself going into industry maybe a few years after college just to see what it's like and then maybe going back to school.
Mhm. So, what has been your favorite class or professor so far?
I've had a lot of good professors and I've had a lot of bad professors and I've had a
Mhm.
lot of good classes and a lot of bad classes. Um, this one isn't really related to anything that I'm doing with my major,
Mhm.
but I had a class on jazz history last quarter, and that
That
one
sounds so cool.
it was very cool. It was 1900s to 1940s, and it was just studying within that era. And my professor was like a two-time Grammy nominee, like jazz pianist, like world renowned, and he'd just play for us. And then we'd learn about jazz music every day, and it was so much fun. It was so cool.
Mhm. That sounds really fun.
It was very fun.
What is your go-to study spot or productivity ritual when things get hectic?
So the spot that I go to when I'm not just trying to chill or when I need to actually get my stuff done, there's Green Library. It's the biggest one on campus. They have the basement of Green Library is filled with the stacks, which are the books. And if you go downstairs all the way to the back of the basement on that back wall, there's a single row of desks behind all the books. And nobody goes there because nobody knows where it exists. And you don't get cell phone service, so I cannot be distracted by my phone. And all there's no windows or anything. The only thing that you could do is study or read the titles next to you. and that is where I go when I need to get my work done.
Hmm. How do you unwind after a tough week of labs, lectures, or assignments?
So I'm in the Stanford marching band,
Hmm.
which isn't very much of a marching band. I don't know if you know anything about us, but we're quite silly. We're technically classified as a scatter band because we just run everywhere. But I found a great community within that band, and it's I come from a spot in high school where it was very competitive, like band was, and I always felt very stressed to be the best. And you can just show up to band and play an instrument you've never even touched before. We played stop signs and kitchen sinks, and all of our tubas are painted with silly pictures and stuff. And I have right now I have LED lights like wrapped around my trumpet. It's just very silly.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay, this is a weird question. What's your favorite element on the periodic table and why?
So, I actually have this sticker right here that I really like. I don't know if you could see it, but it says I'm a science bro, and
Hmm.
it has bromine and oxygen. So I'll go with those just because I love those. I love that sticker so much.
Yeah, labs or sunglass lab goggles or sunglasses, which do you wear more?
Recently I just went back to Pennsylvania for a trip home, and I left my sunglasses at home, so I've definitely been wearing my lab glasses a lot more.
Hmm.
Coffee, tea, or something entirely else entirely for the late night study sessions.
100% coffee. I am such a coffee fiend, like outside of studying. And Stanford has so many coffee shops on campus. It's great.
Hmm. If you could do research anywhere in the world, where would you go? Like the rainforest, desert, or like ocean?
That's such a good question. I think about this all the time. Um, I'm really into the rainforest and the ocean. I'm gonna choose two. But like the ocean out here is I've like coming out here is my first time ever being on the West Coast. I've only been to like New Jersey beaches. And only seeing New Jersey beaches and then coming out to California and seeing the Monterey Bay, it's an entirely different experience because California protects all their coasts. Like you can't build so far onto the coast.
Hmm.
And like the cliff sides are still preserved and there's seals that come out. And I was on a run in Santa Cruz one morning for Thanksgiving and I saw whales and dolphins and all these crazy birds. And it's such a fascinating place. But I've never been to the rainforest, and I'd love to do that because they've got a bunch of crazy plants.
Science meme or pop culture reference that totally describes your major.
Oh man. Um, Science meme. Um, I'll go. Do you know that meme with the cat and the lab glasses with or the lab glasses and the
Hmm.
lab coat behind the
Mhm.
chalkboard? I'd say that's about accurate how I feel when I go to classes.
Yeah. Um, if you could invent your own element, what would you call it?
Breezium.
That's a
Why?
good choice.
Well, my friends call me Breezy Foshizi, and I think Breezium would it would fit.
What number would it be? Like 119?
I mean, if I could get to it fast enough, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come on
Hmm.
Yeah,
and
of
talk to
course.
us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
This was
we
fun.
love hearing about your blending science and environmental impact. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. If you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to
Mhm.
reach out. You have my
Yeah.
number, so
Hmm.
I'll always answer.
Hmm. Thank you.
All
Have
right,
a nice
bye guys.
day.
Good luck
Bye.
with school.